Hello everyone, it's Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we are looking at another standard deck. Today it's going to be Mienshao, a deck that a few people are liking at the moment, on the ladder at least. Obviously there's not too many large scale tournaments that we have to go off right now. Regionals is actually around a month away for us in the UK now, and it is standard format for the first section of our regionals, so standard is going to be the main focus for us this next month. Definitely a few discussion videos to come based around what we can expect in standard for those regionals. So this is a deck that I've been playing quite a bit the last couple of weeks, so trying to really nail down how good this deck is. I feel like it can be absolutely fantastic to a bunch of different decks in the format right now, but it can get countered quite easily as well. So I feel like if you want to pick up and play with this deck, probably early end of regionals is probably the best time to use this before people start clocking on and then starting to counter it. So for now, I feel like it's a pretty decent option in the format, but like I say, it can be easily countered and defeated. So this is Mienshao. It's basically like a new age donphan. However, there is even more prize denial factors at its disposal over donphan, because we're really going to be spamming Focus Sash for the most part, and then trying to recycle them with Eco Arm and keep throwing up Robo Subs into the active position. So let's have a look at these guys. First of all, we have Mienfoo. 60 HP fighting type. It can use flop for 10 damage, which is actually a decent utility attack in the opening turns, because often Mienshao, his attack is not really doing enough damage to two-shot things, but sometimes with an early flop, if we have like a strong G Focus Sash on, it can actually really help the numbers. So it's something to bear in mind. If it's very worth using flop, you can actually go for that. But for the most part, we just use him to evolve into Mienshao. So here is Mienshao, the main attacker. It's just a 90 HP fighting type. We don't really need to worry about any of that stuff because the attack Aero Turn for 1 fighting, it does 40 damage, and you get to return Mienshao and all cards attached to it back into your hand. So this is obviously good for denying the prizes. We can throw up something else in the active like a Robo Sub, or maybe another Mienfoo with a Focus Sash, maybe the Hawlucha that we also play with a Sash as well. So the output is fairly low, but good thing Mienshao is a fighting type, because it means we can play Muscle Band, Strong Energy and Fighting Stadium to really increase the output. So potentially we could be doing 100 per turn for 1 energy, which actually seems pretty decent. He also has the high jump kick attack that also has 40 base damage, but this time it's for 2 colourless energy. We don't play DC in the deck because it's based around Aero Turn, but in those situations where we don't want to return Mienshao to the hand, maybe if we have a low amount of bench Pokemon, it would be quite scary if we just return the Mienshao, because we'd be left with not many options on the board. So if we have a Focus Sash on our active Mienshao, there are times when you might want to attach a second energy to the active and then use high jump kick to remain in the active, let the Focus Sash get discarded, and then the following turn you can, if you set up well enough, you can use an Aero Turn again. So 2 very good attacks. Aero Turn is the main one we're looking for here, and it really offers this nice prize denial element to the deck that we're trying to focus on here. So the only other Pokemon we're actually playing in this deck is for Hawlucha. Hawlucha is fantastic. Again, it's a fighting type, so we can abuse all of these tools. It has the Shining Spirit ability, which also helps us out because we don't have to worry about resistance. Mienshao already doing fairly low output without all of the toys attached to it and stuff. So if we're against things with resistance, it's nice to hit through that with Hawlucha. So Flying Press is a very good attack. It does 60 damage, only 2 EXs, which is actually really essential, because without Hawlucha in the deck, we would lose to a combination of Shamans. So it's very important playing this guy. Hawlucha's, like I was saying with Mienshao, its cap is 100 damage with all the toys we have attached to it. I guess if we put a second Strong Energy onto a Mienshao, we can hit 120. But it doesn't matter because the Shaman has resistance anyway. So Hawlucha is the thing that we need to kill Shamans. We need to have the combination of Muscle Band, Strong Energy and the Stadium all to kill a Shaman. But at least it's possible in this deck, and because we are retaining Strong Energy each turn and we can retain the Muscle Band quite easily, it's actually fairly easy to stack up all those toys to make Hawlucha kill a Shaman. And it's very essential for this deck, because without Hawlucha in here, people can just use Sky Return every turn against our Mienshao. So we're just Aero Turning, they're Sky Returning, we're doing 0 damage, and they're doing 0 damage pretty much, but we start losing our focus sashes, we start losing our robo subs. In the process, they're not really losing anything. So in the long term, we're going to lose that game because obviously their deck isn't just shamans. They're going to have other attackers that can actually come in and finish us off when we're out of sashes and robo subs. So we need Hawlucha to stop that strategy cold. Like I say, it's also just really helpful. It's actually quite helpful in the mirror match, having this fighting resistance and free retreat. It means that sometimes we don't have to commit focus sashes to our active Pokemon and just rely on Hawlucha being bulky enough to take a hit. So it's actually pretty good in the mirror as well. So having 4 of these, pretty nice in here. Also, we just want to add the basic count, to be honest. Just 8 basics, so we want to get into these as much as possible, not giving our opponent the chance to draw too many cards off of mulligans. You might notice we're not playing shamans in here, so this is actually a good deck for all you budget players out there wanting to play a deck without shaman. Yeah, we're not playing any because the whole basis of the deck is denying prizes, so having a 2 prize card sitting on your bench is completely against that theory, so no space for shaman in here. So let's look at the trainers and stuff now. First of all, we have a single Eco Arm in here. I know when the list was originally sort of discussed, there was 2 Eco Arm. I'm pretty comfortable with 1. I feel like if you can't win a game with 7 focus sashes, you're not going to win the game with 10. I think that's just the way it is. 7 focus sashes should be enough to get you through a game. So yeah, Eco Arm shuffles 3 tools from your discard pile back into your deck. For the most part, it's going to be focus sash, the thing you want to recover. We also play Headringer in here, which is hilarious to get back. Headringer is actually really important in here, so Eco Arming that back is really nice for helping us buy a few turns early on in the game, and also dealing with and trying to force our opponent into more awkward positions so that we can actually end up stalling our opponent in a lot of situations. I think I win games, like, as often as I win thanks to taking 6 prizes, I will win about the same amount just from decking my opponent out with this deck. So Eco Arm can really help us get into the long game, get back the Headringer, the focus sashes, Muscle Band if we really need to as well, so very good in here. We're also playing 2 Enhanced Hammer. It's actually really similar to the Eco Arm. We're going to try and use it to keep stalling on our opponent, make it awkward for them to play, and get rid of all the energy. It can really help out against stuff like Vespiquen that can just keep pumping out the damage quite easily, and we don't even one-shot Vespiquen, so having the Enhanced Hammer can really help out there. And yeah, a lot of special energies being played right now. It's also pretty good against Giratina. Otherwise, we're left doing 40 damage per turn, and we can't put our focus ashes on the board. So having 2 Enhanced Hammer to stop the Chaos Wheel for as long as possible is really nice for us. We have 4 Level Ball in here. We need to basically swarm our field early on. Aero Turn is going to keep scooping itself back into the hand, so we need to have a field of quite a few Mienshao, as well as a Hawlucha or 2. So Level Ball can search everything in the deck, so it's just an insta-search card. It's pretty nice. We're also playing a Professor's Letter. Professor's Letter obviously combining with Karina, which is a real engine of this deck, can really give us a lot of outs into our energy, even though we just play 8 in here total. So we're playing 4 Robo Sub, very, very helpful for the Aero Turn, forcing Lysanders out of the opponent, or even if they don't, they can just knock out the Robo Sub and we're fine to send up a free retreating Hawlucha to make our decisions the next turn. So Robo Sub, very, very helpful. When there are times where your opponent doesn't even attack the Robo Sub, you have to have a decision whether you want to discard it or just stall a turn. Oftentimes, stalling a turn is still a good option for us. Like, if they weren't able to kill it last turn, we're in no rush to really win the game because we have the stalling option to win the game as well. So Robo Sub is often a very, very crucial card in this deck. We have the 4 Trainer's Mail as well. Because we're not having Shaman in here, we need to have as many consistency boosting cards as possible. So Trainer's Mail to help us find these supporters is pretty important. You can also as well find, the Focus Sashes and everything else that's pretty important in the deck. So pretty nice in here. We're playing 3 VS Seeker. I don't really see the need for 4. Often it's an issue of space. We do have quite a few things in here. Even though just 11 Pokemon, just 8 energy, all the tools and stuff are very, very important. So I feel like actually cutting a VS Seeker is probably one of the best ways we can get around it. 3 still very important though, can help us fish back things that we need at the right time. So Gotta still have a high count, but I think 4 is not completely necessary. So we are playing the Fork Arena, maxing it out. It's just fantastic. It helps us find Pokemon throughout the game, and also helps us get these focus sashes, these muscle bands. Maybe Professor's Letter for energy is often a play. It can help us find Robosubs, and also it can just help us find VS Seeker to start streaming Karinas turn after turn, to always have something to do the following turn, which is really important. So we also have 2 Lysander. Like I say, Shaman is something we're going to look to kill with Hawlucha to help us finish our game a little bit quicker. Seeing as though Mienshao really does low output, it's often 3, sometimes even 4-shotting EXs. So it's a nice change of pace. If you can just Lysander, stack up a Hawlucha and take a kill on a Shaman, it can really swing the exchange very, very quickly. And your opponent may not be expecting that as well, so you can finish off games a little bit earlier than your opponent assumes. Also, like I say, Mienshao not doing enough damage to take one-shots, rarely ever. So if your opponent's just moved something to the bench, you can Lysander it back up to try and finish it off. So pretty important in here. We also have 2 Tierno. Tierno helps us draw more cards. Pretty simple, 3 cards. Seeing as though we're playing Mienshao that jumps to the hand, it's pretty detrimental to have shuffle draw, because we want to always have and hold a lot of things in our hand, and Tierno really helps us maintain this hand size and keep us digging through the deck to have a lot of options in the hand throughout the game. Tierno as well as Karina is going to be something we try and VS Seeker often. The final supporter we have is for Sycamore. Although we are holding a lot in hand, obviously early game Sycamore is still probably your favourite card along with Karina. We need to have an overall higher output of supporters as well, so having the 4 Sycamore is really helpful. And oftentimes you can dump your hand quite significantly and use the Sycamore when you really need to for more cards. It's often a last resort unless it's the early game, but it's still a very nice thing to have in here, so we're maxing him out also. We have 3 Fighting Stadium. We need this to increase our output, of course. It's a counter stadium for a lot of things that can harm us as well. It also, increases the output, and it's essential for Hawlucha, like I say, to kill these Shamans. So whenever your opponent is attempting the bouncing trick with Shaman, where they use one Shaman to Sky Return going into another Shaman, it's very crucial to know your count of Strong Energy, Muscle Band, and Fighting Stadium as well, especially because they can discard your Fighting Stadiums, whereas the Strong Energy and Muscle Band are often replayable thanks to Mienshao. We really need to keep track of these so that we don't just lose to Shamans using setup every turn. Or Sky Return every turn, I mean. So yeah, the Fighting Stadium, very important for that at the very least. But in general, just the output needs to be increased for this deck to really put enough pressure on the opponent. So here are the tools. Focus Sash is pretty much the main card in this deck. It's what makes it tick, really. So one of the worst things for this deck to come up against is any sort of bats, or even things like Ariados where they can poison us. That's a real issue. Gengar is definitely a horrible matchup for us, because not only do they poison us, taking knockouts each turn, but they also run their own Robosubs. So oftentimes we're going to be missing attacks, whereas they are always going to be getting knockouts unless we have our own Robos active. So Focus Sash, in all other aspects, it's a fantastic card, but the real weaknesses lie with status conditions and also bats. In general, they can just be Zerosicked off or Megaphoned, but those aren't really played in too high numbers. Sometimes people play a one of Zerosick and try and VS Seeker for it now and again. But in my own opinion, if they're doing the VS Seeker Zerosick play, you have to think, well, they probably would be VS Seeker Lysandering anyway. So it's not too big of a worry, them having a Zerosick in their deck. It's pretty much the same way that they can get a single prize off of us. So the Sash, very, very important. Like I say, 2 Muscle Band, it increases our output with every aero turn we use, and we need it for killing Shamans. The final tool we're playing is a Headringer. Really, really love Headringer. This again, I've said how important this Shaman bouncing trick is, because it's one of the only real outs some decks have to beating this deck. I know when I was playing a bit of Rayquaza, I think a way that I could sometimes beat Mienshao is by using Shaman for, 4 or 5 turns before I was fully set up. So using a Headringer on a Shaman, once the first one's you Sky Return, the other one's in the active position, you can slap a Headringer on, and you can just do 2 bounce of bounces with Mienshao to actually kill it, whereas they can't just put the DC on and jump back to their own hand. So that's a great way of denying that play for your opponents. So the one head ringer, very crucial there. Also, it's great against Seismitoad. I know Toad isn't too huge right now, but Toad Bats is still a difficult, very, very difficult matchup for us. So if we can Karina for that one head ringer early on to at least give us another turn of trainers, that's really huge for us. Obviously, because we have head ringer and the enhanced hammers, we can head ringer turn 1, they commit either a DC or they don't, and then you can enhanced hammer, and then enhanced hammer again. You can buy yourself quite a few turns of trainers against Seismitoads, so head ringer very important there. And in general, it's going to make things more difficult to attack, give us more time, make it more awkward for Giratina to attack us, which again is a big deal because tools really are crucial for us in this deck, as well as a special energy, increasing our output. So the one head ringer, fantastic. You can recycle it again with an eco arm as well. So I think it's an absolutely very, very good inclusion in this deck that I feel like not a lot of Mienshao players are actually utilising. I think this is a real clutch card to have, especially because we have Karina to find it in the early turns. So finally for energy, we're playing a total of 8. 8 is actually quite high. I've tinkered around with 7, but it does kind of hurt if you start prizing 1 or 2 here or there. So I think 8's probably the right number. You could try having 7 in here, maybe bump up a Tierno, maybe bump up the Eco Arm count if you're worried about the lack of Eco Arm in here. But overall, I'm happy with 8 right now. Like I say, it's something to play around with. I don't think I would ever go lower than 7. But essentially having 8 means that sometimes you don't need to Karina for letter turn 1, which is pretty good. But yeah, the 4 strong energy, pretty simple. The extra damage is very much appreciated. And having the 4 gives us enough outs against stuff like Aegislash and stuff like Giratina as well, so that we can at least continue to do the 40 damage per turn. So pretty good stuff all around there. So that is the deck, guys. Tell me, guys, what you think about it, and I'll be back in a few moments with a couple of battles. So we found ourselves a game against Stainless Skill. Pretty cool name there. And hopefully it'll load for us. We're up against something with Psychic and Lightning. Don't know too many of those combinations. Could just be in Night March, I guess. But oftentimes they're going to play Shaman, so... We start pretty well. Karina's often the thing that we want to see in the early turns. And having the Mienfoo plus the Robosub, which acts as a basic, is really going to help us out here. So we start with that Mienfoo. And we're up against Pikachu and Golett. So not too sure about this. We should have a good matchup here. As long as he doesn't play Bats, we should be fine. I know that Raichu is sometimes paired with Bats, but not always. So here we can use Karina. I'm happy to find Mienfoo straight away. And Pikachu isn't going to threaten us turn 1. So I'm just going to... I think I just want to find Letter here to get some energy for the next couple of turns. I guess I could hold off this turn and just find another Mienfoo. That could also be a decent play. Because we have the Karina in hand anyway. But I think I want to VS Seeker next turn. So I think Letter's the right play this turn. By that logic. Also, if we letter this turn, we can thin the deck a little bit better. So let's go for that. Looks like we've prized 1 basic fighting, but that's okay for now. We do still have a lot of strong energy. I think one of those is prized as well, actually. Okay. But one good thing about this deck is it retains energy really nicely. And very easily as well. We have an Enhanced Hammer in hand, which is also really good against both Raichu and Golurk. I imagine he's playing double colourless, and he could even be playing Strong Energy also, because when Golurk evolves, it gets that extra typing. I think I'm happy to attach to Mienfoo to also put some pressure on the Pikachu next turn. We just need to find a Muscle Baton to actually knock out this Pikachu, and that's just as a Mienfoo, not even a Mienshao. So our opponent's going to play Level Ball here. And gets another Golett. And we also see a third Level Ball, oh no, second Level Ball, sorry, for a Pikachu. The Golett does have resistance to us, so it's going to take a while for us to knock these guys out. We do see that double colourless energy. Then we see a Trainer's Mail for a Sycamore that then gets played. getting rid of one of the Lysanders. So that's in the discard pile for later. Wow, okay, he actually plays Gengar. So that makes this matchup a whole lot more difficult. I think I actually want to save Enhanced Hammers for Gengar. That's how big of a deal that card is against us. Also, I think I want to save Stadiums for that reason as well. So next turn we could actually assume... You pretty much have to assume the worst. So if we were to Aero Turn this turn, I think we need to find definitely another Mienfoo. And I think I want to find a Sash here. If we send up a Sashed Mienshao... No, we could just send up the Robo-Sub, I think. So potentially another Robo-Sub's the play. No, I want to attach the energy and get a Focus Sash. That's what I want to do. Because I can Sycamore basically for free next turn. So by protecting this Mienfoo, we protect our energy, sort of. So we can evolve. And I still think the Robo might be the play. Actually, no, I think the Mienfoo's fine here. This Gengar definitely can't kill us next turn. Like I say, hold the Enhanced Hammer just in case he wants to start attaching to Gengar next turn. So let's jump into the hand, take our first prize, and getting that third Stadium is a bit of a pain. I guess I could have played one down to bait like a trade and then I can play my another one down, but I wasn't expecting to pick a third one off the prizes. So we see that evolution into Raichu, then the Dimension Valley comes into play. So the Golurk, okay, we see a DC onto Raichu. Let me see, VS Seeker for Lysander, which then gets played to find our other Mienfoo, which is just going to get hit for 60. Pretty standard there. We've seen our first VS Seeker from our opponent. Not too big of a deal here. So we can bench Mienfoo and Hawlucha. We can evolve into Mienshao. And the actual threat here is, well, first of all, we'll put the Stadium in. If we were to just attach this turn, we would not be killing the Raichu. So I think I'm happy to dump this energy and attempt to Sycamore into strong energy here. Let's use the Sycamore. It's not too big of a deal just losing the energy anyway, and the reward is so good. So let's get that strong energy, which was nice to pick up. We can train his Mel as well. I think the Headringer is going to be really good here. And we're going to Headringer the Gengar. Put down a Hawlucha here. And we're going to... I think we could even just high jump kick here. I think that's not a bad play, actually. Yeah, we can do that. Our opponent lolling at our plays for some reason. I don't see why. I think we're in a good state here. The Gengar getting the Headringer is really nice for us. Especially because I'm not sure how many like Psychic Energy he'll actually play in this deck. Let's give him a smiley face. Try and prod him along as best I can here. But I think we're in good shape here. The Gengar does come active. We see an Enhanced Hammer. Then a Double Colorless does go onto the Gengar. And then we see a Shauna. So this Gengar is not going to be threatening too much. It can do the Night Attack to put 3 counters somewhere. Probably the Mienfoo is the most disruptive if he's going to go for that play. So let's see what he goes for here. Opponent taking his time to decide what to do. I guess this deck does put your opponent in that sort of spot, so I can't argue that much. But we just see the Night Attack getting rid of the Robo. Okay, that's pretty okay for us, I think. So we can level ball here. I think I just want the other Mienshao. And we can also Karina. I think we've already got rid of 2 DCs. This will be the third if we get rid of that. And it can basically just keep the Gengar active for a bit longer. So I think the other Mienshao is fine to take here. And we can go for the Enhanced Hammer. Get rid of that DCE. And Aero Turn, just for the 40. We have the Stadium, so it cancels out the resistance there. And we'll go into Hawlucha. Just because he has no energy, there was no need to fish for something like a Robo-Sub or another Sash. Keeping track of your opponent's board is pretty important with this deck. But fairly easy to manage. We see a Mystery Energy go onto the Gengar. So it can actually retreat if he wishes. But where does he go, really? I think the Golets do have resistance, but then they're sort of trapped. That bulky retreat cost. We see an Ultra Ball. For another Gengar. So quite a few things going on in our opponent's deck here. Then we see a VS Seeker for a Shauna. The Dimension Valley comes into play, so he can actually attack us this turn. That's our second VS Seeker from our opponent. They actually chose to Shauna over Sycamore, so I wonder what that last card in their hand was. We see a Muscle Band go into the Gengar. They choose not to bench Pikachu. And where does this snipe go? I think it's irrelevant on either of the Mienshao. So yeah, he just puts on a Hawlucha. Here we can put down a Mienshao and a Robo-Sub. So our opponent still needs DC next turn to get an attack on us. I think it's actually worth... If we start Aero Turning now, it's only going to be 20 damage, which really is awful. I guess we could find Karina to find Muscle Band for more output. That could be a play. I could just TNO and hope to find stuff like Strong Energy and Muscle Band. Let's go for that. We do hit Strong Energy. We do have to be sort of wary about it just because we've already seen a Enhanced Hammer. So I think if we Aero Turn for 40 into the Robo-Sub, he probably just snipes here anyway. So I think Hawlucha might be the play here. And if that's the case, 60 plus the poison is going to kill us. So I think we want to attack with this one anyway. Because if it's going to get knocked out, we may as well let this one die so that this one can still be sashed later on. So let's Flying Press for 60. Putting the Gengar down to 70, which is actually in range of a Hawlucha next turn. And like, if he actually wants to get a knockout this turn, he has to commit even more to this Gengar, which is pretty good for us. Pikachu does get benched. Actually, Pikachu with DCE kills us, which is fun, but I don't think he'll go for that. To be honest, it seems like a waste of the DCE. Then we see a Xerosic getting rid of the Head Ringer. So they put a Muscle Band on. And then we see a regular Psychic Energy go onto the Gengar to finish off this Hawlucha. So good plays from our opponent. It does mean that we can recycle that Head Ringer now. We don't have any other tools in the discard pile yet. And our opponent retreats into the other Gengar. So we can go into Hawlucha as it is a free retreater for us. Our opponent with one card in hand off the prizes. So what are we really looking for here? Lysander would have been excellent, but we obviously don't have that play available. I think smacking with Hawlucha, although it's more damage, we don't have enough real energy to do that right now. We've got rid of 2 of our 3 basic fighting already, and putting down more strong energy just goes into his enhanced hammers and puts us in more of a spot. So I think I want to play down a couple of Mienshao here. I could play like out my entire hand and go for a Sycamore play. I think that's probably the best here. Let's level for another Mienshao. Play that down. Normally you don't want to commit Mienshaos, but if we're going to Sycamore anyway, we may as well. So I think I want to start sashing these Hawluchas more than anything else. Actually, I guess if we're going to go into a Mienshao next turn, the Mienshaos all have weakness, so the Gengar's going to kill us with the poison. So the sashes aren't actually that relevant. If I think I'm just going to spread them around. Give us the best options here. I'm going to put a strong energy on one without a sash so that we can get the chance of getting the muscle band off of this Sycamore. And we do hit them, which is nice. I think Robosub's definitely the play this turn. So, no real need to train his mail. There's nothing I actually could get off it that helps right now. We have Lysander for next turn to try and finish off this Gengar. So let's just Aero Turn for 60, thanks to that pesky resistance. And I think, yeah, Robosub's the play. He's only got 1 card in hand, so it's quite likely he could just pass here, but it's still safer. Just a single... Well, he didn't even need to attach energy. He could have used Night Attack anyway, so... we do see that Mr. Energy actually get attached, so he can free retreat this guy if he wishes. But I think he's getting the same job done with a Night Attack than anything else. You might choose to Night Attack this Hawlucha because of the sash, but either way, the Gengar's attacking. Break our sashes. So let's see what he wants to do. Our opponent taking their time again to decide. There's a lot of small margins here. What's actually going to be useful? Oh, we see a VS Seeker. Probably just for Sycamore. He was probably debating whether it's worth getting Lysander here to kill one of our dudes. It's a good question. I think it might actually be the case. He has everything on board, so he doesn't really need to Sycamore for much. The only issue is if I start Lysander stalling on here, which I easily could do next turn, that if he does go for a sort of greedy Lysander play, oh wow, he's going for it. This is big. And he's going to go for the Mienshao. He's going to take the knockout, of course. The poison is going to finish us off in between turns. And this Gengar's going to freely retreat. I wonder where he's going this time. This is an interesting decision for him. He goes back into the other Gengar. So we can go into Hawlucha just for the free retreat. So we're doing 60 with Mienshao. 80 with Hawlucha, of course. So I think I just want to keep pounding away at this Gengar and hold the Lysander. We can use a male. Getting another Robo is nice. And benching the Mienfoo. I guess they're just as vulnerable if they had the sash than if they didn't. So we may as well just bench it as is. Basically, while I still have the option to retain energy, I want to do so for as long as possible. So again, holding the Lysander for now, because it's not really achieving us much until we need to be using Hawlucha anyway. So let's just Aero Turn for 60. The Robosubs aren't doing too much, because at the very least he can just Night Attack and force us to discard it anyway. But at the moment it's stopping at least a Dark Corridor knockout with Lysander. Our opponent has now got through 3 of their VS Seekers and 1 Lysander. Fairly standard to play 2 Lysander for VS Seeker, so we have to assume there's still a few more in our opponent's deck, but we saw the evolution into Raichu, so I wonder what our opponent's last card is, if it's even playable. So we see our opponent retreat into the Gengar, and then Night Attack a benched Robo. Probably the best play from our opponent there, because it effectively gets rid of 2. So now, do I actually Lysander this Gengar? If I Lysander this Gengar, it means I can kill this one next turn with a Hawlucha. I think that might be the best option here. Seems sort of counterproductive, but I think it's the best play. Me putting down that second Robocell was actually probably a misplay based on how our opponent just played us. Very good play from our opponent there. So I do want to play this one down just because I have to discard my active one. And we're going to stack up this Mienshao. Play the Lysander. And take 2 prizes here. If it will allow us. Seems to be lagging a little bit here. Gengar definitely causing us to sweat a little bit here. Can easily take out Mienfoo. The only thing is, next turn, if he does take out Mienfoo, we have Hawlucha anyway to come in and kill it to win the game. So the Gengar really has to be careful here. Hopefully we do not disconnect, because I think we can easily win this game. We have Lysander to kill... Okay, here we go. Good, good, good. Yep, our opponent goes into the Gengar. It's a free retreater thanks to the energy that it has. So even with a Lysander, that's probably the worst case scenario I can think of right now. We win next turn. We need to be like ace trained or something random. Wow, okay. Why did I say it? Why did I say it? Wow, that's a huge swing for us. Or for him, I guess. That's pretty crazy. We did hit a supporter off of it though. Man, if I knew I had to play around Ace Trainer, I probably would have dumped a bit more from hand. Incidentally, I didn't play around it. I guess my opponent's playing something not too standard anyway. But with non-EXs, I think Ace Trainer is not the best pick, really. Because normally you're going to be taking the 2-for-1 exchange. So Ace Trainer is going to be in your opponent's favour rather than yours. But here it's working out for our opponent. It might be a tech just for this matchup, who knows. So our opponent again with a decision to make. Our opponent has been opting to Night Attack around the Robo rather than just killing it straight up. So let's see what they go for here. Our opponent's still deciding what they want to do. Maybe if they want to commit energy elsewhere to the board or anything like that. Knowing as well that he probably has to move this Gengar this turn. So we see a Psychic Energy go onto Golett. And this Gengar basically has to move, so I think it's going to be a Dark Corridor rather than a Night Attack. Wow, he just Night Attacked? That is so brave of him. Okay, wow. We actually top deck Sycamore as well. So we just need Strong Energy for game here. And we hit it, so there it is. GG. Still lolling. We did have still quite a few outs in our deck, to be honest. We've only really played Karina's. Actually, no, we have played quite a few supporters. Oh well. We got it, so can't argue. Yeah, pretty good win there for us, even against Gengar, which is nice to see, because that can be an issue for us. I think it was our opponent almost being greedy with that Lysander. It put him into more hardship, I think. I think the Sycamore would have been a lot safer, but this deck also does sort of run you down on resources. Maybe if he hadn't Lysandered there, he was running out of the amount of VS Seekers and Lysanders he had left to actually run through all of our Robo Subs and stuff like that. So, questionable play. I think in his shoes, I probably would have Sycamored. But there's arguments to both sides. So that was the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. And it's been Joe from OmniPoke, and I'll see you guys next time.